For many years I've been thinking about doing a rock and roll album. It's something that Lynn and I were talking about, and she was very keen on the idea. She loved her rock and roll. So she loved the idea of me doing some of these songs that I never did with the Beatles. So I started planning it, and what happened was I started to remember that the early recording sessions with the Beatles happened a particular way. And a very specific way. What happened is you were supposed to get at the studio for 10 o'clock. Then you're supposed to be ready with your guitar in tune or your bass, set up, your amp, everything ready to go by 10:30. Then at 10:30, the grown-ups would kind of arrive. Then they'd say, what are we doing? You'd tell them. And in the next 3 hours, you were expected to do 2 songs. Then at 1:30, you had 1:30 to 2:30 hours lunch. Then 2:30 to 5:30, you did another 3 hours, another 2 songs. That was the way we worked for quite a while, like Revolver, Rubber Soul, all the early albums. And I remember loving it, because it was so fast. There was no time for anything but music. It wasn't indulgent, you didn't have time. So I thought it'd be really great to do that again. I had a kind of like professional nostalgia for that way of working. So I thought, I wonder if it would work these days, you know. The other thing I realised was that when John and I were writing, we often would have written the stuff just the week before. So when the producer, George Martin, and the engineer would say, all right, what are we doing? John and I would say, well, it goes like this. We'd pull our guitars out and we'd show them the song. Often Ringo and George also didn't know what was coming up. They weren't with us when we were written. So it was really fresh. It meant that everything we were recording, people had only just heard for the first time, so you really had to think, what do I want to do on this? Make instant decisions. Nothing could be left till later. You just had to go and do it. So I thought, well, I should try and recreate exactly that. So what I did was I booked Abbey Road Studios, Studio 2, which is our old studio, for a week. I rang up some guys who I knew, 2 I didn't know, just thought who'd be a good band, and asked a few people. Dave Gilmour was interested in doing it on guitar, and he's an old friend, Dave, and I like his playing. Mick Green, who I'd worked with before, who used to be in Johnny's Kid and the Pirates, a British group, and he's a great rock and roll player. They're both great players, but different. I knew I'd be on bass, which is how I used to work. I didn't swap instruments, I just sang and was on bass all week with the Beatles. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. We rang up Ian Pace out of Deep Purple and stopped and said, you know, do you fancy it? He said, yeah. Got in touch with Pete Wingfield, who was a really good rock and roll pianist, good keyboard player, and said, you know, you fancy it?
You said you didn't know Pete, but the rest of the guys were guys you knew?
I didn't know Pete Wingfield or Ian Pace. I'd never met either of those guys. Pete's the pianist and Ian's the drummer. I didn't actually even speak to Pete or Ian before they showed up. Producer rang him. But I wanted to do it like that. You know, I thought, if I start talking to them, I'll start telling them what songs we're going to do and I'll give the game away. So I just sort of thought, no, let's just meet up when it's too late. A forward is the only way to go, you know. And so I showed up on the Monday morning. I'd got out cassettes of the songs I wanted to do. First of all, I just thought, what songs do I really love? What songs are fixed in my memory, you know, from when I was a kid? And I would think, oh, I remember being on the fairground and that song was playing. So I thought, got to try that one. I remember loving that song, and that was a B-side. So I got together about 25 songs that I just remembered. We didn't do them with the Beatles, but I knew I liked them. In actual fact, to sidetrack, the interesting thing with the Beatles was we would show up at a gig and there'd be like 4 or 5 bands on the gig, and we weren't necessarily top of the bill in the early days. But there would be a couple of people on before us, a couple of bands. Now we do like Long Tall Sally, What Did I Say, a couple of songs like Shot of Rhythm and Blues, a couple of songs like that. What would happen is these other bands would play them. You'd be in the dressing room, you hear, What Did I Say? You go, there goes one of our big numbers. You hear the next song, Long Tall Sally, oh God, there goes another. And they'd wipe out your whole act. So you think, I've really got to do something about this. So we took to actually looking for B-sides. And actually, it's why John and I started writing. No other reason. It was the only way they couldn't access our stuff. It wasn't some great, you know, we must write, we want to be composers. It was like, no. It was like the only way to get original stuff. So we started writing around that time. And a lot of B-sides that I'd collected for that kind of reason, we didn't actually get around to doing. A lot we did. So I had this whole store of memories of these things. So I just got a manila envelope with all the words, and I sat at home exactly as I'd done when I was 15. And in that case, it was a 45 record and a dansette. Now it was a cassette. I didn't get any of the sheet music. This is all later. I'd be getting the first line down, stop the cassette, write it down, play the next line, write it down. And I thought, I haven't done this since I was 15. And it was a great feeling. It was like, wow, I love this. And what I did on this Monday morning, said hello to people, got in tune, made sure everything was working. 10:30, I just would look through the manila envelope. I just would find the first song I really fancied, one or two of them, maybe we do that later. They go, ooh, fancy this one. Pull it out, say to everyone, now anyone know No Other Baby? And they all go, no. Because, you know, some of these were quite obscure. So they say no. I said, well, okay, here's how it goes. Exactly as we used to. It only took 15 minutes to show them the song. And these guys are such good musicians that then we just split to our various instruments and we just try it. We'll go and listen to it once, go down and do a couple of takes, get a good take, and it was like, okay, next song, ching. And that was it. And we raced through them. And at the end of the week, we'd done like 19 songs, you know. And I think we really all enjoyed doing it. Somebody said to me, didn't you have any ego problems with all the band? You know, I didn't know. I said, it wasn't time. There was no time. It was like, next song, ching, lunch, ching. You know, I'd run over, stick a soup on, do a salad, ching, back to you know, it was great. It was really quite hard work, but very satisfying. So at the end, and at 5:30 in the evening, we'd just say, right, going home, night, which is unheard of. Now, I mean, that's like an office job, you know. But it worked, and it was really great, very satisfying, and we often came out of each day with about 4 songs. So it was very fresh, about as fresh as you could get. Very live sounding.
When you were doing it in this way, it's songs from your past, or, you know, songs that you loved in the past, it's a location from your past, Studio 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a style from the past, you know? Did you have a sense at all of kind of stepping back slightly in time?
Oh yeah, a lot. Actually, all of us did. Because the thing about working in Studio 2 in Abbey Road is they haven't changed it since before we worked there. And the idea is that there's so many great records come out of there, not just the Beatles, a lot of other good people, that why change it? I mean, you might mess it up. So it's one studio in the world. They've got a lot of other studios, EMI, so that's the one they don't change. So when you go back in it, or you see footage from it, it already looks like the past, because the location is the past. I think for all the guys in the band, it was kind of nostalgic, really. I mean, Dave Gilmour's worked there a lot with the Floyd, so he knows the studio well. But it is a great studio. It's a great room. Stuff sounds good in it. And you've got to take the formula. If it sounded good when we just thought up something really quickly with the Beatles, it ought to sound good now. You know what it smells? Studio 2 smells. And people who'd come along who don't know that smell, to me it's like a very homey smell. I go, whoa, yeah, you know, I'm back.
Do you think you sing better if you think you have to sing good? Because you sound so great.
You know, the truth about the singing was that since Linda died, for a year, I haven't really sung. There's no opportunity to, or no need to, or whatever, you just don't get around to it. Only things I'd done, I've been writing little bits, and you use your little writing voice. It's a little voice, really. And then you learn how to project it when you come make the record, or whatever. That's the way I do it, anyway. So I didn't actually know if I could sing, so I had a bad moment the Sunday evening, before the Monday morning. I thought, wait a minute, not only do I not know if I can still sing okay, after a year of not really singing, I also don't know the bass parts to these numbers, and I've never done them before. Oh, great formula. But then I thought, wait a minute, the only thing is, the other guys don't know them either. That was the saving grace. I thought, well, that's okay. And that's what we did. I made up the bass part instantly, sang it while I was playing. And again, I thought, well, if there's one thing I've had practice at, it's playing the bass and singing at the same time. If you think about it, that's my whole career with the Beatles and beyond. So, you know, I'm probably like one of the most practiced people in the world at that thing. And the guys would say, well, that's a nice feel you've got on guitar. Do you want to put guitar on? I said, no, I'm the bass player. You know. So we did it like that all week.
So you didn't do any piano parts either?
No, bass only.
You know, just listening to it generally, I mean, there's a few really sad moments in it, but generally, it just feels like a celebration. Very upbeat, Was that the spirit you were looking for, or does that just happen to be what
Well, no, that just happens because in rock and roll, that tends to be the spirit. Rock and roll tends not to be very sad, it tends to be very joyous, you know. Saturday night, I just got paid, full about my money, don't try to save. Heart says go, go, have a time. Saturday night, baby, I feel fine, you know. That's the gist of most of your rock and roll lyrics. And I love that about it. But then there's songs that I remembered, like Lonesome Town, which was a Ricky Nelson song, and I was quite a big fan of his. And that's a sad song. Of course, now for me, it's more meaningful. It's, you know, when I'm singing it now, it means more than I ever meant before, just because it just does, you know. But it was good to do, you know, it's good to do those songs. It's kind of a little bit of like therapy in a way, you know, working with a band like that is a bit, you get it off your chest. So, yeah, there were one or two sad songs, but mainly it's very upbeat, very energetic. I enjoy doing it.
You said it was like therapy, and I
Yeah.
wondered how you meant that. Like, did you mean sometimes just, you know, when life is really hard, burying yourself in your work is the best thing you can do?
Well, you know, people had said to me, one of the things to get over a kind of tragedy is to stay really busy, really busy. But I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I see that one, but it's just too easy. It's a bit like denial. So I thought, well, for at least a year, I'm not going to do that. And so I didn't. You know, I just did whatever came along, whatever I felt good about. But I thought, well, maybe after the end of a year, I will start to think of what I want to do. And the immediate project that I'd been talking to Linda about was the rock and roll album. So I thought, well, that'll be good. I'll pick that up. It's simple. It's not too much thinking. You know, it's nice and basic, rock and roll. And I might enjoy doing it. That's exactly what happened, you know. And working with the guys, we did get busy. In fact, we got very busy. That week was just like madness. But I think we all enjoyed it because it demanded of us that the fact that we played well quickly. And no one was allowed to say, I need an hour for a vocal warm-up. It's like, sorry, love, you haven't got an hour to do the song, never mind a vocal warm-up, you know. And so it was great. Once we all understood what was going on, everyone really rose to the occasion. And I know from just chatting to the guys that we had a ball.
Do you think that kind of discipline and that sense of that work ethic, how is that mirrored in the music?
Because you haven't got really long to think. It's like you're being given a decision in life. You've got two roads to go down, and one of them's, you know, a rocky road or whatever, and you just got to, you know, when you can't think, you've got to go, right, I'm going down that one. You just have to quickly decide. And I think there's a spirit in people that often makes that quite a good decision. It's often the first, Allen Ginsberg used to say to me, first thought, best thought. You know, when you're writing a poem or something, the first thing that comes in your mind is often the best one. It's not always true, but it's often good. So I just thought, that's how we'll do it. And I think, in fact, one of the catchphrases we had during the week would be, no thinking. Because what had happened was, like, the drummer might sort of say, now what if I use brushes and don't use the hi-hat? And what if I come in on the second chorus? You go, you're thinking. There we go, oh yeah, I'm sorry. And it was like, that was like the worst thing you could do all week, you know, and say, what if we take that and do a special, and I could do this? No thinking. So it was like outlawed, you know, we banned thinking from the week. And I think that shows, you know, in a positive way. Rock and roll, you know, you either just do it or you don't. I knew I just had to get out there. I had these guys playing, and I've got to sing it. They're looking to me to sing it. And I always had Mick Green looking at me through the screens, and Mick, I mean, he was laughing most of the time. He was getting me laughing. It was like, but it was good. There was a real good rapport between us all. And because we had no time to think, and also didn't want to think, I think you've got a kind of instant thing in the tracks. The singing echoes it, because it's like, you better get it right, because we're going home in a minute. And so you've got to call on your instincts, you've got to call on all your musicianship suddenly. You don't get to pace it out over a week, you know. Well, I'm good at that, I'm good at that. It's like, no, you better be good at singing and playing bass, and he'd better get the drums right all together, because this is our chance at it.
And then is it live takes? I mean, are the takes that we hear the actual...
Yeah, all the takes from the thing are just actual live takes. There wasn't actually much fixing required, but we may just, you know, in the mixing, we might just sort of fix that a little bit or a little bit there. But it was mainly just the straight takes, very spontaneous. We edited a little bit of it around because we were making it up. Sometimes we went on a bit too long, so we just chop a verse out or something. But that's really all we did. It's basically what you hear is what happened, you know, in that week.
I love that spirit. You said you chose the songs that you really liked,
Yeah.
that brought back great
Yeah.
memories. But then there's the 3 tracks that you wrote. When did
Yeah.
you come to that decision that I am going to add some of my own compositions to?
While I was getting the lyrics and thinking about what songs I was going to do, I was writing at the same time. So rather than write a ballad, I thought, well, seeing as I'm going to do a rock and roll album, I might as well write a couple of rockers. They might come in handy, you know, we might not have enough stuff. And also I like doing that, I like trying to do it. But they're actually very hard to write, rock and roll. You talk to most songwriters and they say it's easier to write a ballad, although they perhaps sometimes seem harder to write. It's difficult to get things sounding genuine in rock and roll. Because you're not black, you don't live in the South, you're not some poor guy on a terrace with an old blues guitar, you know, so that's the difficulty, you know, you're not experiencing all this stuff that it came from, you know. But, you know, I love it so much that I can try in my own way to recreate those feelings of when I was a kid and my admiration for these blues and rock and roll people, you know. So I think it all started with one of the songs called What It Is that I was just starting on the piano. I was just writing the song anyway with half an idea that I might be doing this rock and roll album in the back of my mind. And I actually wrote that while Lynn was still alive. So it was a nice song to sing to her, You're What It Is. So that had kind of, you know, sentimental attachments for me on that. That's really the only story about that song. I wrote it for her. And then I thought, well, you know, I'll keep going, you know, and see if anything else comes. And I was actually in Atlanta. My son James wanted to go down to the funky area. You know, he wants to always go to the funky area of town. Me too. And just walking around the block. And people saying, yo, Bob, right, man, yeah. And it was nice, you know, good friendly atmosphere, nice and low-key. So I'm enjoying it, nice afternoon. We came across this shop, which is like one of these sort of voodoo shops, where you get cures for everything, all your ailments, you know. Being in the South, I think they're a bit more prevalent than up in the North. Anyway, I was looking in the window, and there's these fascinating things in the window. There's like bath salts that you put in your bath, and it gets rid of all your demons. And there's like incense that you can burn. They'll get rid of, you know, it's that, the whole shop was dedicated to that kind of thing. So I was looking in the shop window and I saw this bottle of bath salts called Run Devil Run. I thought, oh wow, and I realized what it was. I thought, that's a good title. That's a title for a song, Run Devil Run, you know. So I was actually going back on holiday after that. So while I was on holiday, I started thinking of the words for Run Devil Run. They came quite easy, you know. I thought, well, working backwards, Run Devil Run. The angel's having fun, making winners out of sinners. Better leave before he's done. When he gets through, he'll be coming after you. So listen to what I'm telling you. Run, devil, run, you know. So it came quite easy, the chorus. And then I was actually out sailing, and I did the verses out sailing, which is nothing to do with sailing. It's all about a swamp in Alabama. But, you know, your imagination's free to roam when you're on holiday like that.
I thought it had a little, like, Linda feeling.
You know, that's amazing. Yeah, I've thought that. A few of the harmonies on the album, because she didn't record on it, it was done more recently, there is a spooky thing. It's like she's singing on it. Yo! Well, I have no problem with that. It just must be something about my voice and her voice and how it used to match, and living so close together, I think, you know, you grow into each other a bit, you know. So I've thought that just recently. I thought, oh, she's singing backing. Yeah! Magic. And then I did one more, because the producer, Chris Thomas, said to me, oh, I really like this. This could be good. You know, you should be good to have a couple of originals. So then I said, oh, you like it? Okay. Well, and I come up with this other one called Try Not to Cry, which is kind of slightly more pop, but still sort of R&B based. Those 3 all made it to the final album.
They fit in so well.
That's really what I was worried about, because I know that most of the other stuff's, well, all the other stuff's retro. Although we were trying to get quite a modern sound, so it's like a band now playing old songs. We were a little bit worried that the new songs might not fit in to this thing. But it was kind of cool, because one day, I think one of the roadies, the guys said, who did this one? And it was one of the new ones. We thought, oh, we're cracking it here.
You said they're retro songs, but they're not retro sounds.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain what that means?
Yeah, you know, sometimes if you listen to the radio, you'll hear a modern song, and then if it's a kind of liberal enough station, you might hear an old rock and roll song. Sometimes the sound is just woollier, and it's just a little bit more old-fashioned. It's not as crisp, not as clear as a modern recording, just because that's what's improved, you know. Some people don't like that improvement, but people are used to it now. You listen on the radio, there's a kind of standard of sound that if you don't get in that ballpark one way or another, they won't play it. And so, that's not what you want. So me and Chris, the producer, talked, and I said, it'd be really good if our stuff, even though the songs are retro, could live alongside normal stuff that's being played on the radio. Not old-fashioned stuff, modern stuff. So that was our policy, was to do that. So we talked to Jeff, the engineer, and said, okay, we want it to kind of be, modern sounding, but the songs themselves obviously are going to be old songs, except the new ones, which will be new. Well, there were a couple of songs that really I just wanted to kind of be faithful to the originals, just because the memory was just so clear. Blue Jean Bop was off an album that we had in Liverpool of Gene Vincent's, where the big hit was Bebop-A-Lula. Blue Jean Bop wasn't quite such a big hit, but it was one we loved. And it's got this nice intro, which, Blue Jean baby, with your big blue eyes, da, 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 da. I can't keep still, so baby, let's dance world of blue. And it goes, like a lot of rock and roll songs used to do that, And it's got this echo, pop, 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 really popping. And in actual fact, having done a bit of that in the week, I realised that they actually used to write for the echo. Well, it's the bop, 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 that's bop, a delay echo. That sends it. So if you go, lovely day today, and all languid things, it doesn't work. You've got to pop the echo. I'm a pop, you a beat, you bop, you baby, bop. So you realise that's why the songs were written like that, So it's great just sort of rediscovering all this stuff you kind of knew. And on Blue Jean Bop, I thought, no, I just want that echo, over-the-top echo sound. So we used it there. But on a lot of the other songs, there's kind of a more modern sound on them, but the songs themselves are like old-fashioned. We just, messed them around. I mean, I love the lyrics of this album. They're really nice. Blue Jean Bop's got, can't keep still, so baby, let's dance. Dip your hip, free your knee. I like this stuff. It's kind of good words, I think. Some of them are really brilliant, clever lyrics.
Yeah. Free your knee.
Free your knee. What free your knee is a line out of Blue Jean Bop. And it's actually a dance instruction, but when you say to someone, free your knee, they go, what? If you think about it, it's like, dip your hip, free your knee, wiggle on your baby, 1, 2, 3. It's like shake it, baby, or something. Free your mind, free your knee, free yourself. So that's why I like it. It's a nice little phrase.
She said, yeah, which I thought was a very sexy song.
Sexy song? Yeah, man. She said, yeah, it was a Larry Williams song. And it was really one of my favourites of his. In fact, it was my favourite of Larry's. He did some other good songs, like Boney Maroney and stuff, which are bigger hits. But it was always a song I loved and always wanted to get around to doing. In actual fact, I remember turning Mick Jagger onto it. I remember distinctly having him up into a little music room, and the bit I loved it, dun 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 dun, bah. And I was dancing away, showing Mick, and he loved it. So, my main recollection of She Said Yeah is just as it being really one of my favourite Larry Williams tracks. And he's just a great vocalist, Larry, and it's a storming track, the original. So that's kind of faithful to, we've messed around with a little bit, but that's sort of like my memory of the original.
You got it right there.
All Shook Up. Oh yeah, I tell you what, I have the loveliest memory of All Shook Up. I mean, we were mad Elvis fans before he went in the army. We kind of thought that made too much of a change because we were kids and he was a little bit more grown up than we were, but we still identified to the kind of youthfulness of him. So we just loved him. He could do nothing wrong. Just thought he was fantastic. And I had a mate of mine who I still know, who's called Ian James, and he was my best mate. So we used to wander around like these fairgrounds, thinking the girls would come flooding to us. And of course, they never took any notice of us. I remember feeling bad one day, me and Ian, it's like, it's teenage blues, and like, oh, what are we going to do, man? It's like, so he said, we'll go back to his place. And he lived in the Dingle, around by where Ringo lived. And this little terraced house, that's his granny's house. And we went in there, and he had All Shook Up Elvis. We said, let's put that on. Well, after we put that on, I swear, the blues had gone, the headache had gone, we were like new people. And so, I just love that song so much for being able to do that. Love the pop, which is like a snare, but it's like, bop, I'm all shook up, there's a little bop, and it's not a snare. Often, it was just a cardboard box or something they hit. Later with the Beatles, we would often do that, use that. That's as good as a snare, on a record. We'd often just hit on these and stuff. And that's all came out of that. So I remember All Shook Up for that little snare beat. But mainly just for the joy it brought. These two teenage lads, turned our day around. And I just thought, wow, that's got to be a good song. And then when we were recording it, me and Dave Gilmour were doing the backing harmonies. Again, no time, 5 minutes, let's do it, guys. We don't know how the harmonies go. Sure you do. You've got 5 minutes, starting now. So we went down there, and a bit I loved, we're having a lot of fun just working together. You just do the end of the line, and the line is, a volcano when it's hot, because you've just got to sing, Kano when it's hot, which is lovely, a very surreal little lyric, Kano when it's hot. And we're looking at each other, giggling, So, there's just good little moments like that were very reminiscent of the kind of moments you had when you were just starting a band. Because it was all suddenly upon you.
Now, No Other Baby?
No Other Baby was a strange track because I didn't have a record of it, and I didn't know who'd recorded it or who'd written it. But I knew I loved the song from late 50s. And so that was one I pulled out of my envelope, said, anyone know this? And I said, no, because really nobody knew it. I barely knew it. But I just remembered it. I remembered the verses. It's such a simple song. And I'd always wanted to do it. We used to do it at sound checks, actually, on the tour. We used to do it. I found out lately that it was recorded by an English group who were like a skiffle group. It was before rock and roll for us here. And they were called the Vipers. They were like a favourite little skiffle group of ours. Funny though, I was talking to George Martin on the phone the other day, and I said, I was telling him about No Other Baby. I said, we even did this song. I said, I've no idea who even did it. I've since found out it was by the Vipers, And I suddenly realised when I was talking to George, I said, wait a minute, George, you recorded the Vipers? He said, yes, I did. I said, well, this song's called No Other Baby. How's it go? He said, well, I said, I don't want no other. He said, oh yes, I remember it. So it turned out, talk about coming full circle. George actually recorded the original thing.
I knew that song, and I couldn't think from where.
Yeah, I think.
But how'd you know the words if you couldn't get them?
I just remembered them. I don't want no other baby view. That's easy. There's only a couple of verses. I just happened to remember them.
And then how did you find out then who had done it?
After we recorded it, we've got to register them because other people wrote them and they want the money, so I'm very happy to. I always loved that thought because it happened with the Beatles. We'd do songs on our early albums that were like Chains and Boys and She's Got the Devil in Her Heart and stuff like this. And these would be like B-sides, lesser known tracks because of the reasons I was telling you before. So that suddenly some little songwriter in the south of America who'd written for the Shirelles a B-side and we'd never seen a check ever. The Beatles had suddenly done it. Ringo had done Boys, So this guy suddenly, and they used to write letters, well, thanks guys, I ain't seen a check on that one for years. So we used to love that thought, and I still do. So I hope that one does well, because I know the guy who wrote it, a guy called Dickie Bishop.
Lonesome Town is so sad.
Well, it's got to be a bit sad, Lonesome Town, because of my kind of circumstances now, When I first heard it, it was just a nice ballad, it's just about lonesome people, and that was okay. Ricky Nelson did it. So I always liked the song, and I always thought one of these days I might do that. I might try and get round to doing that. Actually, it was funny. What happened was, got into the studio fully intending to do it like Ricky Nelson, but then I thought, his version's so good, and if I do There's a Place Where Lovers Go, which is how he did it, I thought, well, it's just going to be a complete remake. In certain cases, I don't mind a remake, but in this one, I thought, nah. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll take it higher. There's a place where love... It's more of my kind of, higher voice. So I thought, well, I'll use that. Everything was going great. I said, everyone know this one? A couple of the guys, yeah, a couple of them, no. So we said, here's how it goes. Got it all worked out. And when we got to the middle, because I was taking it so high, it was going, and they call it Lonesome Town. Then it goes, tie me down to that. And it got ridiculous. It's like, Mickey Mouse suddenly, tie me down. Or then if I said, no, I can't go up, I'll go down. It was like, take me down. And it suddenly got in an ordinary voice. So I didn't know which way to go. I thought, I'm going to spoil the mood. So then, in 2 seconds flat, it was like, I know. Dave, will you sing the tune, Take Me Down to Lonesome, and I'll stay above it. Take me down to Lonesome Town. I'll sing a harmony above it. So it was good, and that's exactly how we used to work with the Beatles. An idea would come up, someone would go, that's good, and it you know, it didn't take weeks to go through the bureaucracy of, is it a good idea? Will we use it? There's no time. You go, we better had. We're running out of time. So we did, and I think that worked out great, the fact that, you know, just a little idea like that.
Now this one is yours, Try Not to Cry.
Yeah. Some songs come like from an idea. And this one came from a very specific idea. When you're mixing a record, it's really good if you can get, like, let's say, a lot of bass drum through. And sometimes the words go over the bass drum. So you've got to favour the words so you don't get enough bass drum. So I thought, I know. Just as a little exercise, I'll work out a song. It was actually not the bass drum, it was the snare drum. I'll work out a song that avoids the offbeat. So it was like, sometime I'm right, sometime I'm wrong. I put the song in the gaps. Yeah? So that was like the whole idea of the song, and I put some words, you know, filled out all the words. Then the chorus didn't bother with that. The chorus just went to a chorus. But that was the whole idea. So consequently, when I came in, all I could tell the guys was, well, it goes like this, you know. You go, I said, and I'm sitting there, you know, supposed to be a good songwriter. I'm saying, I've got this song, guys, and I'm thinking, God, they're just going to laugh at me. It goes like this, sometime I'm right, sometime I'm wrong. How can I do it if I don't know the song? One day I try, and I'm looking at them, they're going, They're trying to look interested, you know. This is good, Paul. And I think they're thinking, whoa, tilt, you know, something drastically wrong's happened here. Sometime I'm right, bunk. But, and then it worked out, you know, and they all saw what I was trying to do, and they fell in with it, and so they laid into the offbeat. So everyone, bap, bap. So it worked out fine, but it was a kind of like a little formula. But it worked out nice. I'm really pleased with it, actually.
Movie Mag, very country and western.
Movie Mag is a Carl Perkins song. And as you may know, the Beatles were like really major fans of Carl. And we had a lot of his records really in our formative years. And there was another artist who we'd sit around playing. And we did a lot of his songs, actually. And Movie Mag was one I always liked. It's a crazy little song. But when I got to know Carl later on, I asked him about that. I said, what is that song about, man? And Carl was such a country dude that he actually picked cotton when he was a kid. You know, he's from a very poor family. So he'll tell you stories. And actually this story is about him trying to take this girl, Maggie, to the movies. And he wants to take her on this horse of his called Becky. And it turns out it's a mule. And it's a real horse. He said, well, Paul, you know, when I was a kid, we had a mule called Becky. And it turns out this is a real story. He had a girlfriend called Maggie. And he did polish up old Becky, and they rode on Becky's back to the movies. So I just thought, that's just so great and so wild. I mean, I loved Carl telling me his stories. He had a wealth of great stories he'd tell. And they just go back just that bit further than I go back. I mean, they go back into the cotton fields. My dad was a cotton salesman, but we didn't go back to the fields, you know, that's cool. So I loved that song just because of it, just because it was such a close connection with Carl. And when we came to do it, we had the full band in. Then it was like, oh, maybe we don't need piano. So then Pete went off. And it was like, maybe we don't need all the guitars. So I think Dave went off. It was like, maybe we don't need any guitars. So then, I tell a lie. The only time I got off bass was to play acoustic guitar on that track. That's actually the only time. So that's what happened. The whole band, we were starting calling ourselves the Dwindlers, because it was like dwindling away. It was just me and the drummer left, you know. Funnily enough, it sounds the most instant, but it was probably the most worked on that. But I wanted to do it because it's kind of a homage to Carl. And I love the song. And it's funny, Mick, who's a London boy, you know, Mick Green, he says, what's all this then? Becky's bike. Climb up on old Becky's bike? No, I said, on Becky's back. So what is she taking her the pictures on a bike? No, a mule. Oh, we had some fun.
So we have that very handsome brown-eyed handsome man right there.
Yeah, this is just a real nice song that Chuck Berry wrote. And we used to know Buddy's version of it. I think John used to do it a bit when we were looking for songs. It was one of John's. I always liked it. It's a mouthful. Walking goes TWA, very Chuck. You know, American life. Flying across the desert in a TWA. I saw a woman walking across the sand. She'd been walking 50 miles en route to Bombay. I mean, where's that come from? You know, but I just love it. He just pulls it off. To meet a brown-eyed handsome man. It's the good lyrics in that. As I told you, Milo de Venus was beautiful. She had the world in the palm of her hand. She lost both her arms in a wrestling match. to find a brown-eyed handsome man. You know, there's a great humour in that, and it scans great, and it sings great. That's the secret about this stuff. You can write the cleverest lyrics that don't sing good. But I liked a lot of Chuck's things, and so like Back in the USA was the catalyst for me writing Back in the USSR. It's like a spoof on Chuck's stuff. So I respect him a lot as a songwriter.
Coquette?
Coquette was a B-side of Fats Domino's that I'd always liked the tune. Hear me, why you been fooling, little coquette? It's just a charming little song, and I'd always loved it, you know. And it was just one of mine that I'd always meant to do one of these days, either with the Beatles or whatever. It never came up. So I just remembered it. I thought, right, got to do that one. So that's one that's got a bit of a retro sound. It's really me doing Fats, you know. But I love it so much that I couldn't do it any other way.
I think it's really cool. And I Got Stung.
I Got Stung. After Elvis got out of the army, I Got Stung was one of the ones he did then. And I remember us not being too keen on it. But recently, I just sort of remember the opening. Holy smoke, land sakes alive, I never thought this could happen to me. And you're in. I just loved that intro. So I thought, I've got to do it, you know, just because of that intro. So I did. I got the words. I couldn't get most of them off the record. I finally actually got a lyric sheet on that one. So I did it. And we just did more of a shouty version than Elvis's version.
Honey
Hush. Honey Hush is a song that really has very, very early memories for me. I remember that John Lennon and Stuart Sutcliffe had an art school flat, an apartment, in a place called Gambier Terrace that looks out onto Liverpool Cathedral. Big, amazing place. And it was just a bare flat with a mattress on the floor, you know, art school kind of thing, you know, a little ashtray. And that was it. And it was one of the first times, because I was a bit younger than John Stu, it was one of the first times I ever stayed out all night, me and George. George was even younger than me, and he still is. He keeps telling me that, he writes that on all my birthday cards. And you're still 9 months older than me. So it was a really great experience for us kids as we were then to stay over at someone's flat, man, you know, not sleep at home. I remember waking up in the morning, like, oh God, you know, after having virtually no sleep, but it didn't matter, it was so cool. And like in this cold little apartment in Liverpool. And there was just a dance set record player on the floor beside the mattress. And the first thing he put on was this Johnny Burnett record. And it was Honey Hush. And I loved it so much. Come into this house, it's the ball that yakety yak. Dun, dun, dun. And his brother Dorsey Burnett does a great solo, you know. So Mick Green really knew this song and really was up for doing it. I think it was one morning when I was a little bit tired and confused. And he said, what are you going to do now then? I said, got to be Honey Hush. So we blew the cobwebs away with that one. This was one of the ones, so I hadn't been able to get one of the lines, one of the lyrics. But I thought while I was writing it down, well, I'll just write it down phonetically and probably I'll find a lyric sheet or something. Well, I never did. So I pulled it out. I was going to do it. I thought, oh, I never found out the real words. I thought, well, I'll sing it phonetically then. So there's one of the lines in it. You be living this way. I ain't coming back no more. And I mean, I'm thinking, it's something, I sound like I'm singing something like, you've been living in Spain, or be leaving this space or something. I don't know, and I ain't coming back no more. So I don't know what we do about that. The real lyric's nothing like it. It's completely different. But it was actually great fun, in the spirit of the album, to just not even care what the lyric was. You're living in Spain, I ain't coming back. Mumble, baby.
Shake a hand.
There was one jukebox in Hamburg, when we were working in Hamburg with the Beatles, that a few of the guys used to go to, this pool hall I think it was, there was a pool table there, and there was one jukebox there that had a couple of records that the other jukeboxes didn't have. So you'd visit that jukebox. There was one where we never went, but it had Now or Never by Elvis. So you had to visit. You couldn't buy the records, you had to go to the jukebox and get the words, sit in there and putting it on in a bar, you know. So there was this one, and it had Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by the Platters, which was gorgeous, loved that. But my favourite on that jukebox was Shake a Hand by Little Richard. And I never had the record. To this day, I haven't got the record. But I remembered it, and I just thought, I love that so much, I'd love to do that one. So we did it, and it's like a gospel-y song. So I did that pretty much like Richard did it. He taught me everything I knew. Paul, you know I taught you everything. It's true, Richard.
Let's Have a Party.
Let's Have a Party was from, Elvis did it, I think, in Loving You, the second movie. And it's just a great song. And there were words, again, that as kids we could never quite get the words. And there was no authority you could consult. It was just us. Thankfully, it was kind of nice it was just us. But so there was, I never kissed a bear, and we always used to think it was, I never kissed a goo. We didn't know what a goo was, but that's what it sounded like, so we always used, never kissed a bear, never kissed a goo, and I can shake a chicken in the middle of the room, let's have a party. So when it came to it, I kept singing, never kissed a goo, and all the guys go, what is that? We looked it up, it was never kissed a goon, which I don't think is a whole lot more sensible either. I've never kissed a bear, I've never kissed a goon. Well, I'm not sure about the story of the derivation of that. Again, some great archivist will be able to tell us what happened there. But I just like the madness of the words,
Did you keep it goo?
No, it came out goon. Never kissed a bear, and that is true. I've never kissed a goon, that is equally as true. So what more do you want? In a way, though, I am glad with this rock and roll album that I have got back to my roots. So it will reassure anyone who thinks, oh, he's gone all classical now. That's not the case. It's just another of the things I do. I still love my kind of rock and roll music.